Ladies and gentlemen, I am here today. I'm here to break down WWE Fastlane. I'm going to talk about the 13 takeaways from WWE Fastlane. About to hop into it, ladies and gentlemen. Feel free to hit that like button. Feel free to hit that subscribe button to be notified of every video that I make. So we're going to hop right on into this thing. Takeaways is a full review, but I'm not going to go move by move by move by move. I'm going to make it quick for you. You're going to hop right on into it and get out of it quick. So we're going to jump right on into this thing. Fastlane was quite the event. And we're going to start at the top, if you don't mind. And if you give me a second here, the first takeaway is that the Shield stood tall one last time. And I got to say, this was a very surprising main event. You know, we're thinking that Becky and Charlotte's going to be the main event. So Becky and Charlotte goes on before this match, and immediately I'm scrolling on Twitter and I see that, man, something must be happening for the Shield to go on last, for Becky and Charlotte not to go on last. Somebody must be turning. And, you know, I got to admit, for the longest, I was like, man, they're finally getting everybody to cheer Roman. They're not going to turn him now. But you know how you delude yourself into something, even though you know it's not going to happen? Well, that was me last night. I was like, man, Roman must be turning. You know the history of the Shield. Every time they get together, somebody turns at some point. So we got this match, and to start off, it wasn't that great of a match because it felt like a Raw main event. Not just because I'm not all that interested in the Shield reunion this time around, but because we got the opposition on the other side. It's Baron Corbin, Drew McIntyre, and Bobby Lashley. That grouping is just not interesting. It's not like it's the Shield versus the Wyatts, or even to a lesser extent, the Shield versus Evolution. I love that as well. It's the Shield versus Baron Corbin. And I have no interest in him. Bobby Lashley, I have a little bit of interest in. But Drew McIntyre, I love. But all of them three together, I have no interest in whatsoever. So as it pertains to the match, we got a face-off with Roman and Drew McIntyre. And I saw that and I was like, man, give me that at WrestleMania. Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre. I know they probably wouldn't give Drew McIntyre the win, but he really needs a signature win at WrestleMania, and beating a Roman Reigns would be huge. Roman Reigns could always get his win back, but Drew McIntyre getting that win on the WrestleMania stage would be huge. I like that in the match. The match didn't really pick up until we got the stereo suicide dives from, I think it was Seth and Dean through the outside. It was definitely Seth and Dean through the outside. And I even loved the Ambrose table dive, the running off of the announce tables, diving onto Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre. I love that as well. The match really got crazy when it sprawled to the outside with Ambrose and Rollins and McIntyre and Lashley, and we had a Rollins stance dive from the fans, and I was like, whoa, that was pretty cool. That popped the fans. Once it sprawled back to the ringside area, we got the Shield bomb through the table. And as for the end of the match, I love the crowd for example chanting one more time. I love that as well. But at the end of the match, we got the Shield bomb. They picked up the victory. Roman Reigns over Baron Corbin, excuse me. And at the end of the match, I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, okay, they're really playing this out. They're really just sitting there. Something, you know, I don't know, something may happen. And when Rollins stuck his fist out, I'm sitting there looking, and you know how you play something out in your mind before it happens? Like, I thought Roman Reigns was just going to level both of them with a clothesline. And I'm sitting there looking, and Roman Reigns just sticks his fist out. And we fade to black on that. It was very apropos. The supposed last time of the Shield. You know how they say when something is the last time, it's not really the last time. So we may see them all again at some point. But looking at it, I don't like the reunion. I thought it was forced together. It wasn't well done, but I appreciate those guys nonetheless. I appreciate what they have been throughout the years in WWE. I appreciate the faction. It's one of the best factions in WWE history. If we're keeping it to WWE, the era of WWE, it's probably the best faction in WWE's history. So it has been very well done over the years, even though I don't like the formation of it now. But I appreciate those guys. I appreciate the moment when they hugged at the end. That is a picture that will always be remembered, depending on what they do going forward with the Shield. So I didn't overall when the match started, I didn't enjoy it, but I enjoyed it once the match picked up, and it was a nice moment at the very end. Going back, my next takeaway is AJ and Randy Orton at WrestleMania. Look, I'm gonna get into Elias later on, but Elias had a segment. My overall thoughts on Elias on the night, I'm gonna get into it later on. But Elias had a segment. Nothing segment that didn't mean anything. It's interrupted by Lacey Evans. She did the Simpsons grandpa gif where he walks into the pub and he walks out. That's all she is at this moment. But the story of this particular segment was Randy Orton came out of nowhere with an RKO, leveled Elias. I was like, whoa, what is going on here? And then AJ Styles came out of nowhere with a phenomenal forearm on Randy Orton. And that continues the feud that was teased on SmackDown this last Tuesday night. And it's going to be Randy Orton and AJ Styles at WrestleMania. None of these guys have nothing to do outside of fight each other. So I guess that's what's going to go down at WrestleMania. And I'm not too particularly looking forward to it. I'm pretty sure Randy Orton is going to come up with a creative RKO at WrestleMania. We'll see how that goes. And I hope AJ Styles gets the win. My next takeaway is what a crap show. We had Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair facing off with one another, and they're still selling this ridiculous Becky Lynch injury where she's coming down on the crutch. And I'm like, bruh, come on. Becky Lynch already knows so the injury when she attacked Ronda Rousey and Charlotte with the crutch. Like, can we stop with this? And the match was severely hampered because they're trying to have Becky Lynch sell this injury, and they couldn't really get into a great flow whatsoever. The only excitement that came from the match was when Charlotte barely beat the 10 count, and Charlotte locks in the figure 8, and here comes Ronda Rousey storming down. Of course, we're going to have Ronda Rousey interfere in this match or do something in this match. And she deliberately hits Becky Lynch, and the overcomplication of the storyline continues. So the Royal Rumble winner only gets into the WrestleMania match because Ronda Rousey interrupted with a disqualification. The WWE booked themselves into a corner. You couldn't have a severely injured Becky Lynch beat Charlotte Flair, so they had to book Ronda Rousey come down and cause the disqualification. You mean to tell me Ronda Rousey wants to lessen her odds at retaining the title just to get at Becky Lynch? That makes no sense whatsoever. And I mean, like, they've overcomplicated this entire thing. And, like, man, you had it. Becky Lynch versus Ronda Rousey at WrestleMania. You had the fan interest that night, the night after the Royal Rumble. The fans were in it. And here we find ourselves, and I'm growing less interested in this feud by the week. All the way to the point where I think by the time we get to WrestleMania, I'm not going to be interested in it whatsoever. I wish the best for the feud, but I don't see anything of interest coming out of it. Maybe the match itself I know the match itself is going to be phenomenal. Those three women will do a great job in the match itself, but I have no interest in it whatsoever. I think by the time we get to it, I'll have no interest in it whatsoever. So my next takeaway is a crowd takeover. So I'm going to get into Kofi Kingston later on in the show, but he got screwed over. I'm going to get into that as well, and the fans wasn't having it in this match. Look, it was very surprising because the triple threat still went on, and I'm sitting there like, oh, it's still a triple threat? We're still getting that here? So we got Mustafa Ali entered into this triple threat matchup against Kevin Owens and Daniel Bryan. And the crowd wasn't having it. The crowd booed Mustafa Ali. They were chanting, "We want Kofi." We got Kofi chants throughout the beginning of the match, and it was a very unfair environment to Mustafa Ali and a face Kevin Owens because they were put into a tough position. Mustafa Ali was put into the position of taking Kofi Kingston's spot, and he got the Rey Mysterio treatment last night. The crowd hated him, and I got to give all three of these guys credit. The crowd wasn't trying to have this match, and these guys worked their tails off to get the crowd involved into the match. I love the sick drop kick that Daniel Bryan put on Mustafa Ali, sent them crashing into the barricade. I was like, whoa, that was a sick drop kick. We had a hope spot when Kevin Owens hit that stunner. I was like, whoa, wait a minute here. Kevin Owens might win. And it was a very near fall that got the crowd into the match. The 450 on the apron from Mustafa Ali to Daniel Bryan. That was sick as well, because apron, hardest part of the ring, as the announcers love to say. I know both of those guys felt that pain. And maybe the craziest spot of the match was the DDT from the ropes, from the near top rope to the floor on Daniel Bryan. And like, that was scary, because every time Daniel Bryan takes a spot to the head, I jump every time because it scares me. And I gotta say, that wasn't the spot of the match. I gotta take that back. The ending of the match was the Busaki knee, as Mustafa Ali was going for a top rope move. That was the spot of the night. He about killed Mustafa Ali at the end of the night for the victory. They turned the fans around, and I got to give these guys all the credit in the world. I loved every bit of. I didn't love every bit of this match, because at the beginning it was like, why would you do that to these guys? You put them in a tough position. You had to know the crowd was gonna react the way they were gonna react. But overall, these guys had a phenomenal match, and I got to give those guys credit. The storyline moves on. We'll see how it plays out from here on in. So, moving on to the next takeaway, a meh title match. We got the Boston Connection versus Tamina and Nia Jax. And I couldn't get into this match whatsoever, because I'm not that interested in Nia Jax and Tamina. The only spot that I enjoyed in this match was the Bayley suicide dive, which took place on everyone, including Sasha Banks. But overall, Nia Jax and Tamina, I just cannot get interested in them. I can't get interested in their movesets. I love me some Sasha Banks. I love me some Bayley. But Nia Jax and Tamina overall, I just cannot get interested into. I'm not interested in. Therefore, I wasn't interested in the match. Bayley would pick up the win over Nia Jax, but the story of the whole match itself was the beatdown that took place on Bayley and Sasha Banks. Nia Jax and Sasha was flying over the table, and Beth Phoenix stood up. I got interested in that. I was like, get you some, Beth. All right. And we got the beat down on Beth. Natalya tried to come down and save the day. She took a beat down as well. And we'll see what happens with that. Is Beth Phoenix coming back? Are we seeing a return here? I don't know. We'll see as the weeks move on, as we head into WrestleMania. So my next takeaway is a U.S. title show stealer. And this was a phenomenal match. We got the 4-way, and it was pretty much the match that we got on SmackDown. And I enjoyed the heck out of this match. It was a phenomenal match. Samoa Joe, Rey Mysterio, Andrade R-Truth. And it was a very quick pace. It was at a cruiserweight pace. And I enjoyed every bit of it. The spot where we got the Doomsday Frankensteiner from Rey Mysterio and R-Truth, like, that was innovative. I've never seen that done before. And it was just as good as the match on SmackDown. The twisting tornado from Andrade over the top rope was well done as well. I enjoyed this match. It would end as Samoa Joe would lock on the coquina clutch on Rey Mysterio. He passes out from the pain. Samoa Joe wins, and I enjoyed this match. It was well done, and the right result took place. Samoa Joe picked up the win. Next up, my next takeaway was a fire tag team match. Now, this was my pick for show stealer of the night, and before the U.S. title match happened. But this match was just as good as well. The Chaos Theory from Chad Gable into the splash from Dash Wilder, which turned into a shooting star press from Ricochet. That was phenomenal. I enjoyed that. The Frankensteiner from Ricochet to the outside. Boy, that was scary. I was worried about Ricochet. He looked like he landed head first on the apron. That was scary. And like the sick moment of the match was Ricochet over the top rope, over the corner until the outside. That was sick as well. The match would end as we got a Shadow Machine on Chad Gable for the win. The right team won. It happened just as I thought it would. The Chad Gable and Bobby Roode was only there to take the pin. The Revival win. They just got the tag titles. They couldn't pick up the win. It was a much needed victory for the Revival. They picked up the win here in what was an outstanding matchup. My next takeaway is go away, Elias. Like all of these segments, I told you I would get into him later on in the show, later on in this preview review. And like I'm here and I'm like, I'm tired of Elias. These segments, these nothing segments. He was going at Cleveland all night long, and he was talking about the matches all night long, and like I was getting tired of. They have no direction for Elias whatsoever. I'm not interested in the guy. Like, do something with Elias. He should be. This is the guy that should have a WrestleMania worthy storyline. He had momentum. He doesn't have it anymore, but like at least do something of note with the guy instead of having him do the same thing every week. My next takeaway is Kofi Kingston gets screwed again. We had this long, elongated, complicated segment where Kofi Kingston was standing out of Vince McMahon's office. New Day came up. They barged into Vince's office and like they demanded a triple threat match. And they got it. So it was Kofi Kingston getting added to the WWE Championship match. And everybody's going crazy on Twitter. It's like, this is the time. They're like, this is the time. And I'm just sitting there like, man, I am worried about the long-term effects of having that match now. Kofi Kingston is having the match now. He's not going to get the title shot at WrestleMania. So it turns out that Vince McMahon is screwing Kofi Kingston over again. It's the bar. And it is a complicated matchup. Excuse my phone. I'm sorry about that. But it is a complicated matchup. Handicap match, the Bar versus Kofi Kingston. The New Day tried to come down and save the day for Kofi Kingston, but they got beat down by Shinsuke Nakamura and Rusev. That kind of came out of nowhere. Felt like a Rusev situation. It's like, what is going on here? The Bar would pick up the match in what was essentially a glorified squash. And like, I'm just sitting there like, man, they're making things overly complicated when things shouldn't be overly complicated. Everybody's saying that, man, this is like Daniel Bryan for WrestleMania 30. And I'm like, man, Triple H screwed Daniel Bryan over at SummerSlam. And like that had a storyline to it. They were trying to hold Daniel Bryan down. Like this has no real storyline to it. Outside of Vince felt that Kofi Kingston wasn't good enough. I mean, that's the story. To screw Kofi Kingston over, it's one thing to replace him in the match, but now they're trying to run the screw job of Kofi Kingston. I'm not feeling it. I mean, I guess it lines up for Kofi Kingston to win the title at WrestleMania. So I like that in the least, but the McMahons getting involved in the storyline, I'm not all that interested in. So the last two takeaways I have is that we got a sweet tag team title opener. I wasn't expecting much out of this match. It started very slow because Shane McMahon was doing most of the work early in the match, but the Miz got in. The Miz did a nice top rope splash to the outside. The crowd was hot. Cleveland was hot for the hometown boy. It was hot for the Miz and Shane McMahon. They really wanted them to win, but at the end of the day, Miz, that's a ridiculous name, would lose the match as Miz tried to go for another top rope splash, didn't work out. Jey Uso got the pin on him. And my last takeaway is Shane did what? So at the end of the match, and I'm like, okay, the Miz is going to be the one to turn on Shane McMahon. You know, we're going to get the storyline for WrestleMania. And Shane was the one that turned. I was like, what? What are we doing here? You know, he puts the beat down on Miz in front of the Miz's father, and he locks in this horrible triangle choke. I wish Shane McMahon would just stop doing that. That's a horrible move. Stop that. Like, he locked that in. Miz passed out from the pain, and Shane mocks the Miz's dad. And like, this is going to be a strange storyline. Shane is the heel and the Miz as a face. You know what? I'll give it a chance, but I'm not all that interested into the heel face dynamic. Although it was a good turn on us, a good swerve, shall I say, to book it as Shane as the heel. We'll see if they can pull it together for WrestleMania. So those are my takeaways. Excuse me. Last takeaway is my overall thoughts. I cannot say that this was a good pay-per-view, or a bad pay-per-view. It was a pay-per-view that was up and down, in my opinion. There were some good things about the pay-per-view that I enjoyed. There were some bad things that made me scratch my head and say, what? So it was a very up and down pay-per-view, a roller coaster ride that ended with the Shield standing tall. So those are my thoughts overall on WWE Fastlane. Let me know what you thought about WWE Fastlane, whether that is in the YouTube comments or on Twitter at 2SweetPod. That's where I did my live tweeting from, at 2SweetPod, or on Twitter at OMG Corey B. Let me know your thoughts.